What's going on, you guys? This is Derek J407 here to give you my thoughts on the WWE Greatest Royal Rumble event live from the King Abdullah Sports Center Stadium in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. The first big event, the first big televised event from Saudi Arabia for WWE. And they went all out with this show. Got a huge money deal from Saudi Arabia, and WWE put on one hell of a show for them. The big stadium, the big crowd, fireworks, pyro, a bunch of big time matches all up and down the card, 7 championship matches, Triple H and John Cena, a casket match, a ladder match, a cage match, and of course, the largest Royal Rumble match in WWE history, a 50-man Royal Rumble, won by the monster among men, Braun Strowman. And, all up and down the card, I look at it and think it was a pretty good show, I thought. It aired live, at least from where I'm at noon, and it ran for 5 hours total. I think it was like a straight 5 hours it ran, including like what was a 15-20 minute intermission, basically, not in the middle of the show, but somewhere after like the first hour of the show, for prayer for those of religious, faith in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia who, have mass at a certain time. They gave them time for that. So, but the show ran for a total of 5 hours. And it came on at noon. Obviously, somebody like me, I had to work, so I couldn't spend my day watching it. But I did watch it on Friday nights. And from when I'm recording this, I just finished up watching it a few minutes ago. Got my notes together to talk about it. And like I mentioned, I thought overall it was a pretty good show. A couple of filler matches in there. A few finishes that may not have been perfect, but I think they were done by design. I don't think any finish on this show was done on accident, especially the two championship matches, the two world championship matches, I should say. I think they were both done by design, at least I hope, for the sake of the Universal title match, but we'll get into that later. But I saw a lot of mixed reactions from people on Twitter and stuff like that. Some people loved the show, some people hated it, some people despised this show mainly because of the Universal title match, but for a plethora of reasons, some people really didn't like this show. I didn't hate it. I didn't see anything wrong with it. Was it long? Hell yeah. It was a very long show. Majority of that was because of that Rumble match, 50 men. I'm not sure how long it went. I know it was probably one of the longest Royal Rumble matches of all time. I'd have to guess. So it went a while, but overall I thought the show was not great, but it was really good. Since it was a WrestleMania-caliber show and WrestleMania was just 3 weeks ago, I guess it is fair to compare the two. Overall, well, I was at WrestleMania, and being there, I did enjoy the show. I didn't enjoy a lot of the stuff on the show at the time, but when I went back and rewatched it, I have a newfound appreciation for WrestleMania, much more so than what I originally thought. So, I did really enjoy WrestleMania, and I enjoyed the show too. I don't know, the over-under, maybe. I enjoyed this show a little less, maybe. I don't know. It's hard to tell. Maybe I'll watch the two back to, oh god, no, I'm not gonna scratch that, no. I'll just say I like WrestleMania a little bit better and leave it at that. I am never watching these two shows back to back. No. I'm gonna kill myself. But no, let's just go ahead and get into the show. Of course, no women were on the show, obviously. They're not allowed to wrestle in Saudi Arabia, but this year they just allowed women to drive in Saudi Arabia, so baby steps. And for those people who were really upset that WWE put on this show in Saudi Arabia, even though they're doing the whole women's evolution thing going on, money talks, people. They have a multi-million dollar, from what I understand, deal with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to hold shows there and have a partnership with them. So there's plenty of time for them to come to their senses and allow women to compete on the show. And when that happens, in due time, it'll be a big deal. And till then, they see money, they see dollar signs, and they offer them big money. And clearly, it paid off. Looking at the production of this show, the pyro and stuff on it, so it paid off for them. So I'm not upset that the women couldn't compete on the show. I understand it. It's just how it is. I don't fault WWE for holding the show. Is it a little wrong with the whole women's evolution thing? A little bit, but this is still a business, people. And money means a lot more than morals and ethics in business. So trust me. So let's start with the first match on the show. Start off with John Cena and Triple H. Their first match in, I think they said 8 years, which is a shock. It's funny, John Cena and Triple H, that's a match I'm really not a big fan of. I wasn't exactly excited for this match on the show, but then I realized, that's not a match that's really been done to death. Cena and Randy Orton, Triple H and Randy Orton, many of those matches have been done to death, but I don't think John Cena and Triple H has really been done to death too much. I can only remember a few times of it happening, WrestleMania 22, Night of Champions 2008, maybe a few more times on Raw, but it hasn't really been done to death. So I was surprised they started the show, but then once I saw the crowd reaction to both guys, it made perfect sense. These guys got a just huge, monumental reaction from the crowd. Triple H got a huge pop. Cena got an even bigger pop. The fans were hot for this match. In the front row, you had a bunch of Saudi princes and families and all that kind of stuff sitting in their couches and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's a different term for it, but it looked like couches. So they were all in the front row, but all throughout the stadium, big applause for this match, and they had a really good match. Triple H at one point, for a majority of the match, he was in control, and at one point he did the 5-knuckle shuffle on John Cena. He did the "you can't see me" and then the "suck it" and then hit him with the 5-knuckle shuffle. So that was a fun little moment. Both men kicked out of each other's finishers. Cena hit the AA and Triple H kicked out of that, and Triple H hit a pretty good pedigree sell by John Cena, who's not the best seller of moves, but he sold the pedigree really well. He kicked out of it. Then they started to trade submissions. Cena locked in the STF, and then Triple H turned it into a face lock or something like that, and then Cena got him up, hit him with the attitude adjustment, gave him a slingshot into the corner, and then picked him back up for another attitude adjustment. So 3 AAs total. 1, 2, 3. John Cena gets the win, and he gets on the microphone just talking about how grateful he is to be in Saudi Arabia and all that kind of stuff. So big win for John Cena. He hasn't had too many of those recently. Neither has Triple H. Triple H hasn't won a match, I don't think, since, and pardon me if I'm wrong, but he did win at Survivor Series, so he does win every now and then, but I don't think he's won like a big major singles match or something like that since probably WrestleMania 31. So you get no complaints out of me watching Triple H lose. But yeah, good opener. I enjoyed the match. It was a fine match to open the show, and good stuff. The crowd was hot for this match, but they kind of died down for the next one. That's the Cruiserweight Championship match between Cedric Alexander and Kalisto. Kalisto won a gauntlet match on 205 Live this past week to qualify for a championship match against Cedric on this show. They had a good match, just the crowd really wasn't all that into it. But a lot of high spots, a lot of flashy moves and all that kind of stuff, a lot of dives, of course, from both men. But in the end, Cedric Alexander hit the lumbar check and got the win. So a good Cruiserweight Championship match on the show. Up next, the vacant Raw Tag Team Championships were on the line. The Bar, Sheamus and Cesaro, taking on the leaders of Worlds, Bray Wyatt and Woken Matt Hardy. Of course, the Bar are on SmackDown, so that kind of made this finish pretty predictable. There were some reports coming out that WWE were reconsidering all their moves during the shakeup, the Superstar shakeup from a few weeks ago, and they realized they moved a few too many teams or too many acts in general to SmackDown and they needed another team on Raw or something like that. I didn't really buy into it. It's like Sheamus and Cesaro, they have nothing left to do on Raw. There's nothing left for them to do. Move them to SmackDown, keep them there. Now, granted, that makes this match pretty predictable, but that shouldn't hurt it all that much. And it really didn't. It was a pretty good match, a pretty basic tag team match. This one and the SmackDown Tag Team title match were both pretty basic and predictable, but we're fine for what they were. Of course, Matt Hardy and Bray won the titles on this show. They hit a elevated twist of fate on, I believe, Sheamus. Matt hits the twist of fate and like Bray holds them up with their legs up and then just kind of slams them down with the twist of fate. So Bray and Matt, the Deleters of World, the Woken Universe now has the Raw Tag Team titles, so that's pretty cool. Up next was the United States Championship match. Now this one kind of worried me too, because I felt, okay, if the US title changes hands here, then obviously the Intercontinental title is going to change hands and go to a SmackDown guy later on, which I wouldn't have a problem with, because it would either be Samoa Joe or The Miz, and both are perfect candidates for Intercontinental Champion. Miz has reached a point where he doesn't necessarily need the Intercontinental Championship. Samoa Joe, I think, would benefit from winning any title at all. So I think that would have been cool. But that would have meant that the U.S. title would have been won by Jinder Mahal, who, of course, on this show challenged SmackDown's Jeff Hardy for the U.S. title. So I was a little afraid of that, but luckily that did not happen. Jeff Hardy retained. The match was one of the weaker matches, but it was one of the highlights for just a brutal botch. Jeff Hardy went for the Whisper in the Wind, completely missed Jinder. Jinder was nowhere to be found. He missed Jinder completely, and then Jinder, instead of just, going with it, he suddenly stopped and fell back. So I don't know why he did that. I don't know what made him decide to do that. It looked painful. It looked so terrible. I don't know why he thought that was a good thing. I don't blame Jeff at all. I mean, unless there was a miscommunication there and Jinder didn't realize he was going for it. It looked like Jinder had no idea what was happening. Like he was in his own little world. So that was the biggest takeaway from this match, which is sad, but not the best botch of the night. And WWE wouldn't even tell you that because they replayed a certain botch later on in the night, but I'll get to that later. But yeah, this match was, it wasn't all that great. The match on Raw from a few weeks ago was better. This one was, so-so. But, Jeff did get the win and retains the U.S. Championship and keeps that title on SmackDown. They haven't announced Jeff Hardy and Randy Orton for Backlash yet, but Randy Orton did become #1 contender for the U.S. title a few weeks ago for a match against Jinder at Backlash. Scared all of us half to death, but when Jinder got drafted to Raw and Jeff Hardy won the U.S. title and brought it back to SmackDown, they gave us all hope that we would not get another Randy Orton-Jinder match at Backlash, or in general, for that matter. And what we've seen over the past few weeks, it looks like we're going to get Jeff Hardy and Randy Orton, if not adding Shelton Benjamin, since he got a pinfall victory over Randy Orton this past week on SmackDown. So maybe we'll get a triple threat, which can branch off into a singles feud between Jeff Hardy and Randy Orton. Maybe even lead into a Randy Orton heel turn. I think that would be pretty good. But, yeah, so that was that. And then up next was the prayer break that I was talking about. They didn't really acknowledge it as a prayer break, but, they went back to the pre-show panel, which had Byron Saxton out there with, Booker T, Jerry the King Lawler, and Jim Ross. So Byron called the show with, Michael Cole and Corey Graves, and he went over and did the panel with the Hall of Famers, so he was pulling double duty. And to be honest, Byron Saxton wasn't that bad on this show. And hey, I give him props for pulling up double duty like that. I don't know why Tom Phillips couldn't have been out there to do it, but it's whatever. And during this break, they showed like a video showing the progression of Jeddah, all of the wonderful things that they're doing with the women and all that kind of stuff, and how they're really trying to build diversity in their city and all that kind of stuff. So a nice little video for them. And then they showed videos of interviews for Chris Jericho and Daniel Bryan, who both appeared in the Rumble match. And then break time was over, and we moved on to the SmackDown Tag Team title match, which was the Bludgeon Brothers taking on the Usos. Another basic tag team match, like I mentioned before. The Bludgeon Brothers won. I don't think there was any doubt. The Usos had some good hope spots, but Naomi and her twerking self was not out there to distract the Bludgeon Brothers like what happened on SmackDown this past week. So she literally was not allowed to be there. So no distraction for them. This might lead to a rematch at Backlash, and then Naomi might play a factor in that match, and then maybe cost the Usos the match. I don't know. I mean, the Usos got beat pretty handily in this match, so, but I mean, you never know. But yeah, that was that. Up next was the ladder match for the Intercontinental Championship. Seth Rollins defending against Samoa Joe, Finn Balor, and The Miz. One of the matches that I was looking forward to the most. These four guys, all extremely talented, and put ladders in the equation. You know it's going to be good, and up to this point was the best match of the night. Some might argue that it was the best match of the night. I say a different match was, but the finish of that match kind of hurt it in some other people's eyes, but I'll plead my case with that one when we get to it. But nah, the ladder match was fantastic, as you can imagine. Everyone got a chance to shine. Samoa Joe looked like a badass out there. At one point, he set up a ladder in the corner, and then he walked away from it, and then the ladder fell, almost hit Samoa Joe. So that played as foreshadowing, unintentionally, of course, because later on, I think it was Finn Balor, knocked a ladder, rammed Joe into a ladder, and then the ladder fell on Samoa Joe. So it finally happened there. And I think Finn Balor, did he hit the coup de grace? I don't remember if he did or not, but it was he was going for the coup de grace, and I think maybe Miz broke it up or something like that. Miz looked great in there. He tried to form an alliance with Joe at one point, but Joe wasn't having any of it. And then the two of them went at it for a little bit. Miz was doing some great stuff. Seth Rollins, of course. Too many crazy spots to call. Finn Balor, towards the end of the match was the star of the match. He was taking out Joe, taking out Miz. A lot of great stuff with the ladder. Balor got busted open. I don't recall what happened. I think maybe Miz did something to him. I tried to go back and see it. I think it was during either an altercation with him and Miz or with him and Joe. I can't really pinpoint it. Maybe I'll have to go back and rewatch it again. But now the finish of the match was really clever. So Finn Balor, he disposed of the Miz, disposed of Samoa Joe. He's all alone on the ladder. He's climbing up. He has his fingertips on the championship, and then Seth Rollins gets a springboard from the apron all the way onto the ladder. So he just kind of like a spider monkey or something like that, and just hops onto the ladder, scurries up, and then quickly grabs down the championship like a thief in the night. Very similar to the heist of the century, they called it, at WrestleMania 31 when he cashed in Money in the Bank. So a very similar thing. It's an established trait of Seth Rollins to do something like this, and honestly, we've never really seen this before, where somebody is so close to pulling down a championship or a briefcase or something like that, and then someone else comes up and grabs the title down while the other person is still up on the ladder. I don't think we've really ever seen that, where two people are both up near the championship and then one person pulls it down to win. Usually, one person get that final blow and get knocked off, and the person's up there by themselves and gets it. So I thought that was a really clever finish, and happy to see Seth Rollins continue to hold on to the championship. I think doing him and Balor as an extended program could be fun. Although I don't know. There's not a whole lot of people for Seth to feud with. I guess Jinder. Turn Bobby Roode heel and do heel Roode against Seth Rollins. I'm telling you right now, turn Bobby Roode heel. He can be the top heel on the entire show. But we'll see about that. Up next, they had a segment where they showed a bunch of Saudi Arabian citizens from different places. Like someone was from Jeddah, and then other people were from other cities or whatever. They were all prospects at a recent performance center tryout in Jeddah, and I guess these were like the remaining people who got chosen. Their names were Nasser, I think is how you Nasser or Nassar, I think it was Nasser, Hussein, Mansour, and Fiso. All of them, I think all of them got a chance to cut promos. Just talking about what an honor it is to represent Jeddah. And out came Arya Daivari and Sean Daivari, the former running mate, or however you want to call it, the former aide to Muhammad Hassan way back in the day. So the Daivari brothers, they came out there and they interrupted. I forgot where they're from. Like, they're from somewhere else in the Middle East. That's clearly a damn, where are they from? I forgot. It's not Iran or Iraq or anything like that. I don't think. I don't know. Anyway, they got beat up by the PC tryouts, who clearly they're not experienced, but they did basic stuff. Of all the guys, I think one of the bigger ones, I think it was Nasser. Like, I think he's big, so obviously he'll probably have the most chances. I think it was the Mansour guy. He showed the most personality when he got a chance to talk on the microphone. So I don't know. I guess watch out for these guys. You never know what could come from them. And up next was the match, honestly, that I was looking forward to the most, aside from the 50-man Rumble and the ladder match. This one I was really looking forward to. That's AJ Styles versus the newly turned heel and dick-hating Shinsuke Nakamura. Their match at WrestleMania was good. A lot of people are a little too harsh on that WrestleMania match, but I can understand it in terms of it living up to the hype that WWE hyped it up as. It didn't really live up to that, but as a match on its own, it was good. But I think these guys proved here that they can do much better. And I think the missing thing was that babyface versus babyface works for some guys, but in their case, I don't think it really worked all that well. And it's good that there's a clear story. Maybe it's not even babyface versus babyface. Maybe it helps when there's a clear story. There's a clear, motivation behind the two of them wrestling, other than it just being a dream match between two guys and all that kind of stuff. Because that was the whole thing at WrestleMania. There wasn't really a story behind it. It was just these two really popular guys, both talented, putting on a dream match that everyone wants to see. That's not really enough of a story. But here now, AJ beats Nakamura. Nakamura gives him a low blow, and for weeks and weeks on end, does everything in his power to make sure to try to just destroy AJ Styles' little phenomenal ones, And AJ's out for revenge. He's out for blood, pretty much. And that story driving this match really helped it, and helped them have a match that was even better than their match at WrestleMania. I thought they had a really good match. Another thing that helped was this match was a lot faster in a way than their WrestleMania match. The pace was a lot quicker. It felt like at WrestleMania, they kind of had a little slow start to it, and the crowd was already burnt out by that point, so it didn't really help that you're like the first 60% of the match is pretty slow, and then it kind of ends right when it's starting to kick into the higher gear. This match started out in a higher gear, and it kind of had its ebbs and flows, but still remained at a certain pace, which was just nonstop back and forth. Nakamura being a dick, and AJ protecting his dick, his plan. But, just the two of them fighting back and forth. And I think that really helped the match a lot more. The fans were into it. At one point they showed them waving their arms, so I don't know what that was all about, but they were into it, chanting for both guys. By the way, Nakamura's new theme song, the remixed version of it with the Japanese rap, is really great. I've really enjoyed heel Nakamura, and I enjoyed him on this show too. So at one point in the match, AJ went for, I think this is probably towards the end. So the match was great up until this point. The match was really good. Like I said, really fast paced, really great. Better than the WrestleMania match. Not quite as good as the Wrestle Kingdom match from a few years ago, but still really good match. So AJ goes for the phenomenal forearm, and he goes for it. Nakamura moves out of the way. AJ almost collides with the ref, so the ref kind of cowers, and he has his back turned, and Nakamura, what else? Gives AJ a low blow. I have absolutely no sympathy for AJ Styles whatsoever. He has been low blowed by Nakamura a good 3 or 4 times by this point. Since WrestleMania, it's been 3 weeks since WrestleMania, and since then, it's been at least 3 times he's been low blowed by this guy, and he still hasn't won a cup yet. I have no sympathy for AJ Styles. And plus, he already has 5 kids, so Nakamura clearly does not want him to reproduce anymore. So yeah, of course, low blow behind the referee's back. Nakamura goes for the pin cover, but AJ gets his feet on the ropes. Then Nakamura sets up for the Kinshasa, and when he goes to hit it, AJ catches him in midair with a flying forearm. Nakamura goes to the outside, and the two fight out there. The referee is counting to tumble over the announce table, and they're fighting, and AJ's really, beating the crap out of Nakamura. You could see it coming a mile away, and then it happened. The referee counted up to 10. Both men got counted out. Fans booed. A lot of people shat on it on Twitter. I wasn't watching during the time the match originally happened, but I did see that that was the finish, and people were really upset about it. But some people got it. They were like, you know what, it's a shitty finish, but I understand why they did it. It clearly sets up a rematch at Backlash, which they announced later on the show was already made official. It's going to be Nakamura and AJ in yet another match at Backlash in 2 weeks. It's 1 week from this Sunday. So yeah, Backlash, the forgotten son of WWE pay-per-views recently. But, so yeah, they're going to have a rematch on that show. Then after the match, AJ, he and Nakamura continued to fight. He was beating up Nakamura. They went over the barricade. I think AJ hit him with a chair at one point. Nakamura tried to run away, but he ran around to the other side of the ring. And AJ got back in the ring and hit a phenomenal forearm from the ring to the outside onto Nakamura. And then AJ stood tall, holding up the championship, while Nakamura kind of scurried away. So, like I said, the match was much better here than it was at WrestleMania. And I'm liking the story now. I'm loving heel Nakamura, or Nutcracker Nakamura, like I've heard people call him, particularly Salamonster of Salamonster Sounds Off that I listen to every week. He's coined that phrase. He even has a shirt up on his website now that pays homage to that. So it's true. But yeah, like I said, no sympathy for AJ Styles with protecting his nuts. He clearly doesn't care about it. But yeah, good stuff, and I look forward to seeing their rematch at Backlash with hopefully a cleaner finish, or at least a definitive end. It probably involves either, I think by that point AJ will have a cup, but I think somehow, some way Nakamura will cheat and win the WWE Championship. I think that's the end goal of this feud, is for him to win. It might not be, but you never know. But I'm thinking that at Backlash, that's where we'll see Nakamura get the belt. So, looking forward to that. Up next, we're not done yet. Oh, no. Oh, no, we're not done yet. Up next, we have a casket match. Rusev taking on the Undertaker. Once again, Undertaker looked great. He's clearly balding, so his forehead is much bigger now than it has been before. And his forehead has always been big, but it's much bigger now than it ever was before. But, yeah, he looked great. He looked better at WrestleMania, but he was only out there for like 3 minutes. So this match was a little longer than I thought it would be. I didn't clock it, but it felt like a little under 10 minutes, maybe around 8 or so. But it was much longer than WrestleMania, so he was out there a little bit longer, but he didn't look too winded and gassed and all that kind of stuff. Looked much better than his match with Roman Reigns or WrestleMania last year, obviously. But I'm still one of the ones who, despite loving The Undertaker and, him being one of my favorites of all time, have no interest in seeing him continue to wrestle, but, he does what he does. And if it's one of these little one-offs and it's just a short match, then fine. So this match went through peaks and valleys in the weeks leading up to it, with Rusev being announced, and then Michelle McCool complaining about stuff that Rusev said, and Rusev tweeting something about "bury me softly," and then they replaced it with Chris Jericho, only for Vince to change his mind and put Rusev back in the match. So we had the match. It was fine. Aiden English interfered at certain points, but Undertaker disposed of him. Rusev got in some good offense, but in the end, Undertaker gave him a choke slam, threw him into the casket, and then Aiden English came in. Undertaker gave him a chokeslam and a tombstone, a pretty brutal looking tombstone, and threw Aiden English in the casket with him, closed the lid, and the Undertaker gets the big win, cancels Rusev Day, and yeah, so Undertaker, wildly popular, of course, huge pop from the crowd, but yeah. Nothing much to say. Nothing much else to say about this one. It was a pretty basic casket match, but yeah, Undertaker gets the win to the shock of no one. Up next, the Universal Championship rematch from WrestleMania, Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns, this time inside of a steel cage. It was better than the WrestleMania match, which, even without the crowd shitting on it, was not a good match, with them just using the same moves over and over again, multiple times, back and forth. We saw some of that here, to an obscene length, but somehow the match was a little bit better than the WrestleMania match. So, of course, Roman, he got a pretty good pop. I think Brock's was a bit bigger and louder, but Roman got a decent reaction. Match starts off, Brock hits a bunch of German suplexes, I think it was 4, and then he hits him with an F5. Doesn't try to pin him. Roman eventually gets back up, starts hitting Superman punches. A lot of Superman punches. Starts tossing Brock around the cage. Ends up hitting him with 3 spears in a row. Brock kicks out. Roman tries to exit the cage through the door. And Paul Heyman came around and slammed the door in his face. Then he got a chair. And, before that, Brock hit Roman with the F5, and which was only good for a kick out. 2 count, I'm sorry. Paul got a chair and slid it into the ring, and Brock went to use it, but then Roman hit him with a 4th spear and then started to hit Brock with the chair a bunch of times. Then he hit him with another Superman punch, and then he geared up and gave him another spear. This time he speared Brock through the cage, and here's where the controversy comes in. So they try to say that both men's feet hit the ground first, or both men hit, went outside first, but Brock's feet hit first, and Brock retains the championship. That's the official decision. Now, when you look at it, when Roman speared Brock through the cage, the piece of the cage was still elevated. It was still hanging from the ring. So technically Brock's feet did not hit first, but his back did. Despite it being on the piece of the cage, I guess enough of it was technically his back being on the ground. And apparently that's how they declare you hit first, even though the rules are you have to land feet first. When you escape the cage with both feet hitting the floor, Brock's feet did not hit first. Roman's feet hit first, because after he hit the spear, he laid out and he rolled off of the piece of the cage, and his feet were clearly on the mat before Brock's were. But the commentators were trying to say, oh, well, Brock's body and all that kind of stuff, despite going the entire match saying your feet gotta land on the floor, your feet gotta land on the floor, and all that kind of stuff. They come to this finish, and then they say, oh, no, but Brock's back, his body hit the floor, and that's what let the body hit the floor. But no, Brock's back hit the floor first, so he's declared the winner. Either way, I could not believe Roman lost again. Roman is a loser. Roman Reigns is a loser, and he's not a loser that you can, get behind and root for to get back in it like someone like Daniel Bryan or Johnny Gargano or something like that. No, he's not no underdog. He's the big dog, apparently, and the big dog can't really do much to hold down his yard since it keeps failing at Brock Lesnar. Now they push the narrative that, sometimes there's some guy who has your number and Brock is that guy for Roman. Hell, Goldberg was that guy for Brock. They told that story and eventually Brock beat him. So I guess we're led to believe that eventually Roman Reigns will beat him. By that point, it won't mean anything. A lot of people were confused because they weren't telling the story right and all that kind of stuff. Roman got screwed, whatever. I want to believe that it was done by they can't do that spot and then think, oh, well, Brock, they both hit the ground first and then you can do this controversy and Brock hit first or something like that. Clearly, it looks like it is, and that's that Brock Lesnar's feet did not hit first. Roman Reigns' feet did. So Roman Reigns and got screwed, and he's entitled to a rematch. I'm not thrilled about seeing Brock Roman 4, but it does look like we might end up seeing that. Not anytime soon, as Roman's scheduled to face Samoa Joe at Backlash next Sunday, but I'm sure in time we will see it. Or we'll see a different match. Maybe a different guy will get in there. I'll talk about that later. But I think either that other person will be the one to dethrone Brock, possibly at SummerSlam, if they want Brock to break CM Punk's record. Even though Punk was WWE champion and Brock is Universal champion, they can pull that shit. World, even if it's a different belt, he's still a world champion. He held it for multiple days. So I think by June he'll break Punk's record if they keep it on him that long. So either he'll face someone else and lose to them, or this is yet another chance to do a Roman Reigns heel turn where Roman Reigns can get one more shot and this time he can be desperate and then he can cheat to beat Brock. Hell, the Authors of Pain, they dropped Paul Ellering. We haven't seen them, well, at least we didn't see them this past week on Raw, or at least I didn't see him. You can easily have them come out there and help Roman beat Brock, make it some kind of no-holds-barred match or whatever. Have them come out there, help Roman win, and then Roman beats Brock, turns heel, and aligns himself with the AOP. I love that idea. I think at this point, Roman Reigns, he says he's the only guy who can beat Brock and, all this kind of shit, and yet time after time he keeps failing. Samoa Joe, the heel, cutting these promos on him is absolutely 100% true. Roman's a failure. So, at some point, it's maybe the big babyface conqueror can beat Brock Lesnar and, be triumphant and all that kind of stuff. But the fans, the fans here in Jeddah didn't boo him, but they didn't really pop huge for him. Roman's just not that over to be this big babyface that Vince wants. We've been saying this for years. How many years have we been saying this? You got another guy, and someone like Braun Strowman, who, I kind of played my hand, showed my hand a little early there, but yeah, you got someone like Braun Strowman who could do it, but if you insist on it being Roman Reigns, the best option is to turn him heel and have him cheat to beat Brock, possibly at SummerSlam or Money in the Bank or something like that, and, have him be a heel as a champion. I think that's probably the best option for you to do, but we'll see. So yeah, that's that. And now the 50-man Royal Rumble match. A good Rumble match, not the best Rumble match this year since we already had 2 of them a few months ago. But it was good. So we had 2 Royal Rumble matches. We had 2 Battle Royals at WrestleMania, and now we have a 50-man Battle Royal essentially on this show. And that's all in the span of 3-4 months? It's crazy. So Daniel Bryan and Dolph Ziggler, they started out. Daniel Bryan had a hell of a performance, lasted longer than anyone in history. I think he broke Rey Mysterio's record by the end of it. But Bryan and Dolph, they started out. Mark Henry, who announced his retirement at the Hall of Fame a few weeks ago, I guess they put him on this show, so he was in the match for a little bit. There was some weird surprises in this match. Someone named Hiroki Sumi came out there at number 7. I guess he's a sumo wrestler. He was out there. He had a confrontation with Mark Henry, which led to Henry eliminating him, which led to Henry getting eliminated. Hornswoggle, he made his return at number 12. Got a big ovation. Some might say it was an even bigger pop than the one for Roman Reigns, but I won't be the one to say that. So he was out there. I think it was Tony Nese. There was a few cruiserweight guys out there, Tony Nese and Drew Gulak, and I think it was Nese who eliminated Hornswoggle. Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods, they were out there. Kofi did one of his big Rumble spots by climbing onto Xavier Woods' back. They were both on outside the apron, and he was on Woods' back, and then Woods climbed up to the top rope with Kofi still on his back, and Kofi dove off and landed on a bunch of guys. So that was your big annual Kofi Kingston Royal Rumble spot. Kurt Angle came out, I believe, at number 16. He was out there for a while, mixed it up with a few guys, eliminated a few guys. I was waiting on a face-off between him and Daniel Bryan, and didn't disappoint. We got it. It was very brief, but what we saw was really good. Eventually, Elias eliminated Kurt Angle. Elias, who came out a few entrants back, so he eliminated Kurt Angle. Tucker Knight, another name from NXT, he was out there at number 24, one half of Heavy Machinery. Honestly, I wish it was Otis Dozovic out there. Otis is the more fun of the two guys, but hey, at least one of them was out there. We saw a little bit of a mix-up between Daniel Bryan and Chad Gable. Chad Gable, who came out there. The two of them went at it for a little bit. Cool to see. Rey Mysterio came out at number 28. Not a shock, since he was, promoted ahead in advance, as was Greg Khali and Chris Jericho. So the only surprises were like the NXT guys and a few random other people. But Rey Mysterio was out there at number 28, looked great. Roderick Strong came out at number 34, and he and Bryan got into it a little bit. They had a little chop fest, and Roddy won because he chopped the shit out of Daniel Bryan's chest. Like, remember, I didn't watch this show until later on in the day. So earlier, when I'm seeing pictures of Daniel Bryan's chest looking all chopped up and looking just all red and gross, like, I'm like, what the hell happened to Daniel Bryan? Like, I knew he was out there for a long time, but damn, like, he got beat down. And then when I heard that Roderick Strong was in the match, then I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Roderick Strong and Bryan Danielson mixing it up, and of course, Bryan's chest looks awful after getting chops from Roderick Strong, who didn't hold back. Good to see a little bit of interaction between Bryan Danielson and Roderick Strong, two rivals from Ring of Honor, from days that I was watching Ring of Honor a lot more often. So that was cool. Randy Orton came out, hit a bunch of RKOs. I think one was on Apollo Crews in midair, which was really cool. Some guy named Baba Tunda, who's like 6'10", 300-something pounds, big guy from NXT, who I have not seen debut in NXT yet, so I guess he's from the PC, but he came out. But then the highlight of the entire night, the best moment of the entire night, just GIF after GIF, meme after meme, all day. And even though it was spoiled for me for hours before I even started watching the show, it did not take away how great the moment was. That's Titus O'Neil coming out at number 39, and while running to the ring, he slipped and fell and landed under the ring. He slipped and slid underneath the ring. It was hilarious. Now, they went a little overboard with how many times because they showed multiple replays of it. Even like minutes after it already happened, they showed like 5 replays of it. But it was funny. I don't usually enjoy the commentators laughing, but that's when it's that forced fake laughter. But the laughter here, especially from Corey Graves, that was not fake. That was genuine. I know, because I was laughing the exact same way as him. That shit was hilarious. And I had a pretty long, stressful day at work, but when I was looking at my phone and seeing all these gifs of Titus O'Neil slipping on his way to the ring, it made it all better. And seeing it actually play out on television was even better. Dan Matha, another guy from NXT. He came out at number 40. He was out there for a little bit. Braun Strowman came out at number 41, who obviously is the main focus going forward now. Eventually Kurt Hawkins came out. He saw Braun Strowman, tried to run away, but Braun chased after him, threw him back in the ring, and eventually eliminated him. Bobby Lashley came out at number 44. Bobby and Braun faced off a little bit. I figured my picks to win were either Braun, Bobby, or Bryan. And obviously I was right with one of them. Kevin Owens eventually came out. Shane McMahon came out, so the two of them had a little interaction. We even had Shane and Bryan double teaming Kevin Owens at one point. Chris Jericho was the final entrant at number 50. 49 was Big Cass. And then, so I knew who was taking out Bryan. And then number 50 was, Chris Jericho. Of course, he and, Kevin Owens went at it a little bit. Bobby Lashley went for his, vertical suplex spot where he holds the guy up for a long period of time. He went for it with Big Cass, but he couldn't keep him up there. And he ended up hitting him with a brain buster. An unintentional one, because it looked like he about to slam Cass on his neck. It looked brutal. But, so that was something. Shane earlier on hit the coast to coast on Braun Strowman. And so then Bryan was encouraging Shane to hit it again on Kevin Owens. So when Shane went up to the top rope, Braun, who had been laid out by everyone else on the outside, got back up, got up on the apron, and basically chokeslammed or did some kind of slam, threw Shane off of the top rope all the way over through the American announce table on the other side. It was brutal, but it's Shane McMahon. What do you expect? Then eventually Big Cass eliminated Daniel Bryan. It was very sad. Daniel Bryan lasted 1 hour, 16 minutes, and 11 seconds. I think it was 75 minutes by my math. So obviously the longest time spent in a Royal Rumble, beat Rey Mysterio's previous record of 62 minutes. I don't think anyone's going to break 75 minutes unless they do another 50-man Rumble, in which someone else possibly could. But yeah, so a big Iron Man performance from Bryan, got eliminated by Cass. The two of them are going to have a match at Backlash. I'm not too worried as long as the payoff is Cass being a bodyguard for The Miz in a feud between Miz and Bryan down the line, which again, not upset that they're not doing that right away. That's something you can build up to for SummerSlam and maybe even be even more patient and build it up for WrestleMania next year. Just because they're on the same show doesn't mean they have to automatically face off with one another. So take your time with it. But very happy for Bryan. But it came down to Big Cass and Braun Strowman, which eventually led to Braun Strowman just shoving Cass out of the ring, and Braun wins. So Braun Strowman wins the largest Royal Rumble match in history, the greatest Royal Rumble. It was not the greatest Royal Rumble. 1992 Royal Rumble was the greatest Royal Rumble of all time. But this was pretty good. Like I said, of the 3 Rumble matches we've seen this year, I think it was probably my third favorite, maybe second ahead of the women. But it was good. It was very long. A lot of filler. You got guys like Heath Slater and Rhino and, The Ascension and Primo Cologne and people like that, It was a bit, and, some of the surprises, like, Batunde or Babatunde or whoever the fuck it is, It was a bit much, but Braun won. A Saudi prince and Vince McMahon himself were out there to present him with the trophy and a championship belt, which I guess won't be defended. It's just a belt that signifies him winning the Rumble. But that was very interesting that Vince was out there to endorse Braun Strowman on the same night that Roman Reigns failed again. Braun Strowman gets the biggest victory of his career so far. And Vince McMahon is out there himself to present him with the award. Braun also broke Roman Reigns' record of most eliminations. Eliminated 13 people total in this match. So, I'm just saying. But nah. And they even had a little video recap at the end. So this was really treated like a WrestleMania show. Second WrestleMania in the span of 3 weeks. Like I said, a good show, a lot of good stuff. The main events, in my opinion, delivered. If you include Cena, Triple H, they were good. The casket match, the ladder match was great. The WWE title match, the bad finish, but a finish that makes sense, and they had a great match. The cage match was good, better than the match at WrestleMania, Brock and Roman. The finish, pretty sloppy, but I'm just hoping that it was intentional. Not that I want to see a rematch, but that it makes sense to do a rematch. And the Rumble, albeit very long and, kind of dragged at certain points, in that, a lot of filler guys were out there, people you just knew had no chance of winning. Despite that, still good. Happy to see Braun Strowman get a big moment like that. So, yeah, a pretty enjoyable show. It was, I couldn't imagine watching it from noon to 5 o'clock in the afternoon. That's a whole day spent on this show. I'm surprised I did all night watching this show, but I somehow went through it and spent about 50 minutes talking about it. But yeah, good stuff. So I guess the next time I'm talking to you guys will be just another 2 weeks for Backlash. Roman and Joe, Nakamura and AJ. You got 2 women's title matches. Hey, women, we're talking about women finally. Miz and Rollins, all that kind of stuff. So until then, I guess I will talk to you guys later.